like to go over the corn market. Obviously a very, very important market here in the U.S. One of the biggest cash crops out there. I wanted to go over what we see going on for the next 3 to 5 years. Right now, we have what we believe is a perfect storm, not unlike what we saw in 2006. If you remember, in 2006, the U.S. was taking every bushel of ethanol it could and was making ethanol for your automobiles. That demand was going parabolic, and it overran the corn market supply, and we had a huge, huge bull market in corn, and obviously other grain markets came for the ride as weather became a little more volatile. Right now, the same thing is happening, except it's happening in China. China has these huge, low-quality stockpiles, and they are taking that corn and they're making ethanol for their automobiles. Anyone who's been to China, I was there just a few months ago, the pollution there is absolutely horrendous. It's just unlivable. So they have to do something. Ethanol is one solution that they're going to use. So they're eating through their corn supplies like we've never seen before. Our estimate that the rate that they're running down their corn stocks based upon their ethanol consumption and ethanol production, they're going to have to be a buyer, at least a buyer of 1 billion bushels of corn within 2 to 3 years from now. And it could be as much as 2 billion bushels of corn if they have some crop problems, as we expect that they will, based upon the grand solar cycle minimum and drought problems that they're expected to have over the next year or two. The other thing is, they're also going to have to buy ethanol from us. If you look at their E10 statute that they put in place for 2020, if they're going to meet that goal, they don't have the capacity to produce that much ethanol. So they're going to make as much of it as they can in their country, but they're going to buy a tremendous amount of ethanol from us. So not only is the demand for corn ethanol going to be huge from China making their own ethanol, but the demand for U.S. ethanol exported to China is going to go through the roof, meaning the U.S. is going to put more and more of our corn into producing ethanol, not for us, but for China. I mean, this is almost a double effect from what we saw in 2006. So when everyone's talking and looking around and saying, look at all these huge corn stockpiles in the U.S., they're missing the point. They're not seeing the true bigger picture that's out there. This is a big, big bull market that's already begun, in our opinion. And if we get any kind of weather problems anywhere in the country, we're going to see corn rapidly rise back to where it was before. So that is one big, big driver for corn. Now, so when we look at corn inventories, we like to take a look at corn ex-China. We like to take China out of the mix because their corn's not available to the rest of the world. So we like to think of it as it's not how much supply is out there, it's how much supply is accessible to a buyer who wants to buy it right now. China's supplies are not accessible, and they're not even the quality that anybody would want anyway. So how much corn is out there? When we take China out of the equation and we do what we call a stocks to usage, as many of you know, that's taking the amount of corn and you divide by the demand of that corn, our stockpiles are not that far away from where they were in 2012 if we take China out of the equation. If you do the same thing for wheat, wheat is the same thing. If we take the China wheat supplies out of the equation, their supplies, their stocks to usage, is not that different from what it was in 2012 when we had prices almost double what they were. Corn has had stocks to usage ratio declines 2 years running despite record crops in the U.S. So what is that telling you? That despite the fact that we are producing as much corn as we possibly can, demand is exceeding it. I mean, we can't produce enough. So if we're remotely right about the grand solar cycle minimum and increased weather volatility and greater problems with production in the world, this is going to light a fire under the grain markets, ag markets, very, very soon, if not already. So the corn market is a market we want to make sure that end users, livestock producers who rely on cheap feed to grow their cattle, to grow their hogs, to grow their chickens, you had better make sure you have procured and locked in your feed for the next 2 to 3 years, or at least price protected it for the next 2 to 3 years. You don't want to find yourself in a similar situation that you did several years ago when you were having to buy $8 corn and had to try to survive. That's no fun for anybody in this room who went through that if you're in the livestock business. So we want to emphasize that if you're in the business of buying feed, corn feed, please be aggressive in locking in that for the next 2 or 3 years. And once again, if you're a farmer and you're a corn farmer and you're sitting on a lot of corn and you sell a lot of corn because you need to pay your bills and the banks are getting kind of anxious, please buy some calls. Price protect those sales. Don't leave those sales 100% open. Certainly be very, very light on selling new crop corn right now. We want to impress upon you that you want to make sure that you participate in this next move higher in corn prices and not become a victim like you were in 2006 or 2010 when many did not participate. So with that, I appreciate your time. Thank you.